The crystalline spires of New Damascus Station pierced the perpetual violet twilight of Zrixian space, their surfaces reflecting countless stars like scattered diamonds. At the heart of this architectural wonder stood the headquarters of Kethril Trading Empire, its twisting obsidian form a testament to its owner's power and influence. Kethril Surith, the wealthiest merchant in the Outer Rim, stood at his office window, his iridescent scales shifting from deep blue to midnight black as he contemplated the datapad in his weathered hands. Another failed expedition, another dead end. The search for answers about the mysterious artifact that had destroyed his home world was proving as futile as ever. His reflection stared back at him, tall, imposing, with the characteristic ridge crest of his species, now streaked with silver from age and worry. The four crystalline sensors that served as his eyes adjusted, focusing on movement in the courtyard below. A small figure darted between the ornamental floating gardens, leaving strange patterns in its wake. Kethril's sensors whirred as they zoomed in. A human child. Here. Security should have prevented any unauthorized access, yet there she was, no more than 12 standard years old, drawing elaborate symbols on the polished ground with what appeared to be simple chalk. Something about those symbols stirred a memory. They resembled the markings on the artifact that had. His train of thought was interrupted by a security alert. Lord Surith, we've detected an intruder in the lower courtyard. Shall we dispatch enforcement drones? No, Kethril replied, his voice carrying the distinctive harmonic undertones of his species. I will handle this personally. The lift carried him swiftly to the ground level. As he approached the courtyard, he could hear the child humming, an eerie, familiar melody that sent chills down his spine. She didn't look up as he approached, completely absorbed in her work. Young one, he called out, keeping his voice gentle despite his unease. This is private property. The girl finally looked up, and Kethril felt his heart skip a beat. Her eyes were an impossible shade of violet, the same color as the crystal that had doomed his world. But more shocking was her complete lack of fear at his appearance. Most humans, especially children, found Zrixians intimidating. I know, she replied simply, returning to her drawing. But they told me to come here. They? Kethril moved closer, studying the intricate patterns she had created. His sensor crystals pulsed with recognition. These were no random drawings. They were mathematical equations, star charts, and something else, something he had seen only once before. The voices in the crystal songs, she said, as if this explained everything. They've been singing to me since the accident. Since my parents. She trailed off, her chalk hovering above the ground. A drop of water fell onto the symbols, and Kethril realized she was crying silently. What is your name, child? Maya, she whispered. Maya Chen. The name triggered another security alert in Kethril's neural implants. Chen, the human scientists who had been studying the crystal artifact before its devastating activation. Could it be? Your parents, he said carefully. They wouldn't happen to be Doctors James and Sarah Chen. Maya's head snapped up, hope and pain warring in her expression. You knew them. I funded their research, Kethril admitted, lowering himself to her level despite his joint's protest. Until the incident. I am sorry for your loss. Then you can hear the songs too. Maya asked eagerly, gesturing to her drawings. The crystal frequencies that weave between worlds. Kethril studied her more carefully now. The Chens had been brilliant xenorchaeologists, but they had never mentioned having a daughter. And yet, here she was, drawing patterns that had taken their entire research team years to decode. Not exactly, he replied. But I know what you're describing. Maya, how did you find this place? I followed the harmony, she said, adding another precise line to her diagram. It's strongest here, right beneath your building. There's something down there, isn't there? Something that sings the same song as the crystal that killed my parents. Kethril's security systems were screaming warnings now. No one was supposed to know about the sealed vault beneath his headquarters. No one could know he had recovered a fragment of the artifact that had destroyed both his world and the Chen's research station. But as he watched Maya complete her diagram, he realized she had drawn its exact location, down to the quantum coordinates. A distant alarm began to sound, and Kethral's sensors detected multiple vehicles entering restricted airspace. Someone else had noticed Maya's presence, someone who had been watching for exactly this kind of anomaly. "Maya," he said urgently, "we need to leave. Now." She looked up at the approaching vehicles, then back at her drawing. "They're coming for me, aren't they? Like they came for my parents." "Yes," Kethral admitted, extending his hand. "But I won't let them take you. I owe your parents that much. And perhaps you can help me understand what they died trying to protect." Maya studied his offered hand, then placed her small one in his scaled palm. "The crystals say we can trust you," she said solemnly. "They say you're like my parents. You want to protect people, not use the songs as weapons." Kethral felt a strange warmth in his heart. For the first time since losing his world, since the Chen's death, he felt a spark of hope. This child somehow understood what had taken him decades to grasp. The crystal artifacts weren't weapons to be controlled, but doorways to something far more profound. As he led Maya quickly toward his private shuttle bay, he made a silent vow. He would protect her, not just for her parents' sake, but because she might be the key to preventing another tragedy like the one that had claimed both their worlds. Behind them, the shadows of approaching ships darkened the courtyard, and Maya's chalk drawings began to glow with an impossible violet light. The story of the merchant and the mysterious child was just beginning, and somewhere in the vast expanse of space, ancient crystal songs echoed with renewed purpose. Kethral's private shuttle cut through New Damascus Station's security zones like a blade through silk, its advanced stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. In the co-pilot's seat, Maya sat quietly, her small fingers tracing patterns on the control panel that made the ship's quantum drives hum in harmonic response. "You need to adjust the resonance frequency," she said suddenly, not looking up. "We're leaving a trace signature in the background radiation." Kethral's sensor crystals pulsed in surprise. The shuttle's quantum wake was supposed to be undetectable. Even he hadn't known about that particular vulnerability. "How did you?" "The numbers sing differently when they're not aligned properly," Maya replied, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. Her fingers danced across the console, making minute adjustments. The drive's pitch changed subtly, and Kethral's instruments confirmed she had indeed perfected their stealth profile. "Maya," he said carefully, "what exactly do you hear when you say things sing?" She was quiet for a moment, her violet eyes reflecting the stream of data flowing across the ship's holographic displays. "Everything has a pattern, a frequency. Most people just see things or hear things. But I feel how they connect, how they resonate, like sheet music for reality." The pursuing ships had fallen behind, but Kethral knew better than to relax. Whoever they were, they had known exactly when and where to find Maya. This had been planned. "Your parents," he ventured, "did they know about your abilities?" Pain flickered across Maya's young face. "They were starting to notice, just before the accident. Mom said I might be sensitive to the crystal harmonics they were studying. Dad wanted to run tests, but then..." She trailed off, and Kethral felt his heart's ache. The explosion that had destroyed the research station had been instantaneous. The Chens wouldn't have suffered, but that was small comfort to their orphan daughter. "The crystal they were studying," he said, "it was like the one that destroyed my homeworld. We thought we could harness its power, use it to advance our civilization. Instead, it triggered a cascade reaction that turned our planet's core into a quantum singularity." Maya nodded solemnly. The songs weren't meant to be controlled. They're meant to be understood, like a language, but not just for talking. For changing things. A warning light flashed on the console. They were approaching Kethral's emergency sanctuary, a retrofitted asteroid hidden in the system's debris field. As they drew closer, Maya's eyes widened. "There's another crystal here," she whispered. It's singing the same song as the one beneath your building. But this one's not angry. It's waiting." Kethril felt a chill run down his spine. He had indeed recovered a second crystal fragment, smaller than the first, and stored it here for study. But he had never detected any variations in its energy patterns, let alone anything that could be interpreted as emotions. The shuttle docked smoothly, and as they disembarked, Maya moved with surprising certainty through the station's corridors. She led them directly to the sealed laboratory where the crystal fragment was kept, despite having never been there before. "Maya," Kethril said, blocking her path before she could reach for the lab's security panel. "What do you mean the crystal is waiting?" She looked up at him, and for a moment her violet eyes seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "It's been waiting for someone who can hear all the songs at once. The crystals aren't just tools or weapons. They're pieces of something bigger, something that got broken a long time ago." Before Kethril could respond, every light in the sanctuary flickered. A deep vibration ran through the asteroid's structure, and his security systems screamed warnings. They had been found. "Maya," he said urgently, "I need you to tell me everything you know about these crystals. Who is hunting you? What do they want?" "They want what my parents found," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "The key to translating the songs. Dad called it the Harmony Protocol. He hid it somewhere in my mind, encoded in crystal frequencies. I didn't understand until now, but that's why I can hear the songs. I'm carrying the key they need." A massive impact rocked the sanctuary. Through the viewport, Kethril saw 3 warships emerging from stealth, their weapons charged. He recognized their configuration with growing dread. They belonged to the same shadow organization that had funded the original crystal research, the ones who had pushed for weapons development despite the risks. "They're going to break through," Maya said calmly, placing her hand against the laboratory door. The security panel sparked, and the door slid open of its own accord. "But it's okay. The crystals have been preparing for this. They just needed the right people to bring the pieces together." She stepped into the lab, and the fragment they had stored there began to glow with an impossible violet light. As Kethril watched in amazement, Maya began to sing, a strange, haunting melody that made his sensor crystals resonate in ways he had never experienced. The fragment rose from its containment field, floating toward her outstretched hands, and in that moment, Kethril understood that he wasn't just protecting a gifted child. He was witnessing the beginning of something that would change the very fabric of reality itself. Another explosion rocked the sanctuary, closer this time. They were running out of time, but Maya showed no fear. She held the crystal fragment like a conductor's baton, and the air around her began to shimmer with quantum possibilities. "Don't worry," she said, smiling for the first time since he had met her. "This is just the overture. The real symphony is about to begin." The attacking ship's energy weapons carved molten scars across the sanctuary's outer hull, but Maya stood unwavering, the crystal fragment dancing between her fingers like liquid starlight. The air around her shimmered with quantum distortions, and Kethril's sensor crystals registered patterns of energy he had never seen before. "Maya," he said urgently, "whatever you're planning." "Listen," she interrupted softly. "Really listen. The crystals aren't just singing anymore. They're harmonizing." And suddenly he could hear it, not with his sensors or his ears, but with something deeper, a resonance that seemed to vibrate through the very fabric of space-time. The fragment in Maya's hands pulsed in rhythm with it, each beat sending ripples of violet light through the laboratory. "Your parents," Kethril realized, "they didn't just hide information in your mind. They changed you at a quantum level." Maya nodded, her eyes fixed on the crystal. "They knew someone would try to use the Harmony Protocol as a weapon, so they made it part of me. Not just data, but understanding. The crystals aren't tools to be used. They're keys to understanding the quantum symphony of the universe itself." Another blast rocked the sanctuary. Warning klaxons blared as the station's shields began to fail. Through the viewport, Kethril could see boarding craft approaching. "We need to move," he insisted. "They'll breach the hull in minutes." "No," Maya said calmly. "We need to stay right here. The resonance points are aligned perfectly in this spot. That's why you built your sanctuary here, isn't it? You felt it, even if you didn't understand why." She was right, he realized. He had chosen this particular asteroid because his instruments had detected unusual quantum fluctuations. He had assumed it was natural phenomenon. But now, "The crystal beneath your headquarters," Maya continued, her voice taking on an otherworldly timbre. "It's not just similar to this one. It's part of the same whole. They're calling to each other." And now, she smiled, a look of pure joy crossing her face. "Now, they're about to answer." The fragment in her hand suddenly burst into brilliant light, and Kethril's sensors went wild. Quantum readings spiraled into impossible values as space itself seemed to fold around them. Through the chaos, he saw Maya begin to move her fingers in precise patterns, conducting an invisible orchestra. The attacking ships suddenly halted their assault, their weapons powering down involuntarily. On their bridges, every piece of quantum-based technology began to resonate with Maya's symphony. "The Harmony Protocol," she explained, never stopping her intricate finger movements. "It's not a weapon or a tool. It's a way of speaking to the quantum framework of reality itself, a universal language written in mathematics and music." Through the sanctuary sensors, Kethril watched in awe as waves of violet energy began to spread outward from their position, touching each ship in turn. But instead of destroying them, the energy seemed to be transforming them. "What are you doing to them?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Showing them what my parents discovered, what your people glimpsed before they tried to control it." Maya's voice was serene, but her small frame trembled with the effort of channeling such power. "The crystals are fragments of an ancient quantum computer designed to help species understand each other at the deepest level. But it only works if you're willing to listen to the whole symphony, not just the parts you want to use." On the enemy ships, crews stood transfixed as their vessels' quantum cores began to sing in harmony with Maya's crystal. Displays flickered with impossible equations that somehow made perfect sense, revealing connections between particles, planets, and people that had always been there, waiting to be discovered. But the power flowing through Maya was taking its toll. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her breathing became labored. "I can't maintain it much longer," she gasped. "The resonance is too strong. I need. Kethril moved without thinking, placing his scaled hands on her shoulders. His sensor crystals began to pulse in sync with the fragment she held, and suddenly he wasn't just observing the quantum symphony. He was part of it. Through their connected consciousness, he saw what the Chens had discovered. The crystals weren't just ancient technology. They were pieces of a vast network designed to bridge the gap between different species' perceptions of reality. His people had found one piece. Humanity had found another. And now, through Maya, they were beginning to understand their true purpose. The attacking ships powered down completely, their crews forever changed by what they had experienced. The quantum symphony began to fade, but its echoes would remain, carrying a message of understanding across the stars. Maya sagged in Kethril's grip, exhausted but smiling. The crystal fragment dimmed but continued to pulse gently in her hands. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. "There are more fragments out there, more songs waiting to be heard. And now they know, now everyone knows, that the only way forward is together." Kethril looked at the child in his arms, this remarkable human who had done what generations of scientists and warriors had failed to do. She had shown them that the greatest power in the universe wasn't control or dominance, but understanding. As the sanctuary's systems stabilized and the enemy ships retreated, he made a decision. He would protect Maya, yes, but more than that. He would help her find the remaining crystal fragments. Together, they would complete the symphony that her parents had given their lives to understand. The quantum harmony had shown them all a glimpse of what was possible. Now it was up to them to help it grow into something beautiful. In the days following what would later be called the Harmony event, ripples of change spread across New Damascus Station and beyond. Kethril sat in his newly secured sanctuary, watching Maya sleep in a recovery pod designed for human physiology. Her small form seemed impossibly fragile for someone who had just rewritten the rules of quantum physics. His security feeds showed the chaos unfolding across known space. Every quantum-capable species had felt the symphony's touch. Some reacted with fear, others with wonder, but none could deny what they had experienced. The crystal fragment, now secured in a new containment field of Maya's design, pulsed softly in rhythm with her breathing. His sensors detected subtle changes in its structure. It was evolving, adapting, becoming something new. A gentle chime announced an incoming transmission. Kethril recognized the encryption signature. It was from the Galactic Council itself. Lord Surith, the Council speaker's hologram, flickered to life, her multiple eyes blinking in rapid succession. "We need to discuss what happened." "With respect, Speaker," Kethril replied, his tone carefully neutral. "I'm not sure any of us truly understand what happened. Our best quantum theorists are still analyzing the data," she admitted. "But we know it originated from your sanctuary, and we know it involved the crystal artifacts. The same artifacts that destroyed your homeworld." "No." Maya's voice came from behind him. She stood in the doorway of the medical bay, still pale but steady on her feet. "The crystals didn't destroy anything. People trying to control them did that." The speaker's hologram shifted, focusing on Maya. "You're the human child, the one who conducted the symphony." "Maya Chen," she said, walking forward to stand beside Kethril. "And it wasn't really me conducting. I just helped everyone hear what was already there." "Impossible," the speaker declared. "Our scientists have studied quantum harmonics for centuries. What you did should not have been possible." "That's because you were all listening wrong," Maya explained, her violet eyes reflecting the hologram's light. "You tried to understand the crystals with instruments and equations, but they're alive, in their own way. They don't just transmit information. They share understanding." Kethril watched as Maya reached out toward the contained crystal fragment. It responded instantly, its glow intensifying. "Look," she said softly, and suddenly the hologram transmission was filled with patterns, beautiful, intricate designs that seemed to dance between dimensions. "This is how the crystals see reality, not as separate things, but as one continuous symphony of quantum interactions." The speaker's multiple eyes widened as the patterns shifted, revealing connections between particles and possibilities that her species' finest scientists had never imagined. "The Harmony Protocol," Maya continued. "It's not just about controlling quantum states. It's about understanding that everything, every particle, every person, every civilization, is part of the same cosmic dance. The crystals were created to help us see that." "Created by whom?" the speaker demanded. "By everyone," Maya smiled. "And no one." The crystals grew from the quantum fabric of space itself, shaped by the collective consciousness of every species that ever looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. Kethril placed a protective hand on Maya's shoulder as she swayed slightly, still recovering from her earlier effort. "Speaker," he interjected, "what happened here was just the beginning. There are more crystal fragments out there, more pieces of the quantum network waiting to be awakened. But if we approach them as weapons or tools of power, we'll repeat the mistakes that cost you your world," the speaker finished. "And the lives of Maya's parents." "Exactly," Maya nodded. "But there's another way. The symphonies the crystals sing, they're meant to be shared, not controlled. They can help us understand each other in ways we never imagined." The speaker was quiet for a long moment, her species' characteristic thoughtfulness evident in her posture. Finally, she spoke. "The Council will need time to process this, but we cannot ignore what happened. Every quantum-capable civilization felt the harmony. They'll be looking for answers." Then give them the truth, Maya said simply. Show them what the crystals showed you. Let them hear the symphony for themselves. And if some try to use this knowledge as a weapon, they'll fail, Kethril stated firmly. The crystals respond to understanding, not force. Maya proved that. The speaker's hologram flickered as she processed this. The council will want to study this phenomenon, to understand it. You can't study it from a distance, Maya explained. You have to become part of it. That's what my parents discovered. That's why they... She faltered for a moment, grief flickering across her young face. That's why they made sure the knowledge would be preserved in a way that couldn't be weaponized. By encoding it into their daughter's quantum structure, the speaker mused. Remarkable. Speaker, Kethril said, we're going to need the council's help. There are forces out there who still think they can control the crystals. They'll keep trying, unless we can show them a better way. And you believe this child can do that? Maya stepped forward, her violet eyes meeting the speaker's gaze without fear. Not alone, but together, with help from people who understand what's at stake, we can complete the symphony. We can bridge the gaps between species, between civilizations. We can hear the music that connects everything. The crystal fragment pulsed brightly, as if emphasizing her words. Through his sensor crystals, Kethril detected quantum harmonies spreading outward, touching the speaker's hologram, making it shimmer with new possibilities. Very well, the speaker said finally. The council will provide protection and resources, but we'll be watching closely. The power you've discovered isn't power at all, Maya interrupted gently. It's understanding, and understanding can't be contained or controlled. It can only be shared. As the hologram faded, Kethril looked down at the remarkable human child who had changed everything. She was right. This was just the beginning. The quantum symphony was spreading, awakening new possibilities, bringing species together in ways no one had imagined possible. And somewhere out there, more crystal fragments waited, their songs ready to join the greater harmony. The real work was just beginning. 6 months after the Harmony event, the observation deck of Kethril's flagship offered a breathtaking view of the quantum nebula they had discovered. Streaks of violet light danced through space, each pulse carrying echoes of crystal songs that only Maya could fully understand. There, she said, pointing to a particularly bright cluster of energy. That's where the next fragment is calling from. Kethril studied the readings from his enhanced sensor crystals. After months of working with Maya, his natural abilities had evolved, allowing him to perceive quantum harmonies that would have once been invisible to him. The concentration of quantum energy is unlike anything we've seen, he noted, even stronger than the fragment that... He hesitated. That my parents were studying. Maya finished softly. She was taller now, her violet eyes carrying wisdom far beyond her years. It's okay to talk about them, Kethril. They'd be happy to see how their work has grown. Their mission had transformed in ways neither could have predicted. What started as a quest to protect Maya had become a galaxy-wide initiative to understand the crystal network. Representatives from dozens of species now work together, learning to hear the quantum symphony in their own unique ways. The Council's latest report shows remarkable progress, Kethril said, bringing up a holographic display. Quantum-based communications have evolved beyond our previous understanding. Species that once couldn't comprehend each other's thought patterns are finding common ground through harmonic resonance. Maya smiled, watching the data streams flow. That's what the crystals were meant to do. Not just connect technologies, but connect minds. Help us understand that we're all part of the same cosmic dance. A gentle alert chimed, announcing the arrival of their escort fleet. Ships of various designs, some organic, some mechanical, some defying traditional classification, moved into formation around them. Each vessel's quantum core had been tuned to the crystal harmonies, allowing them to work together in ways that would have once seemed impossible. They're nervous about this expedition, Maya observed, sensing the subtle variations in the ship's quantum signatures. They remember what happened on your world and at my parents' research station. Can you blame them? Kethril asked. The power we're dealing with. It's not about power, Maya interrupted, a familiar determination in her voice. It's about understanding. Watch. She stepped closer to the viewport, placing her hand against the transparent barrier. The crystal fragment they carried responded instantly, its song reaching out to touch the nebula before them. Colors shifted and swirled as quantum possibilities danced through space. Through their shared connection to the harmonies, Kethril felt what Maya was doing. She wasn't trying to control the energies they had discovered. Instead, she was inviting them to join a greater symphony. The nebula's response was breathtaking. Patterns of light and energy began to coalesce, forming structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The escort ship's sensors registered quantum fluctuations that should have been impossible, yet somehow made perfect sense within the framework of the harmony. "It's beautiful," Kethril whispered, his sensor crystals pulsing in rhythm with the unfolding spectacle. "This is what my parents saw," Maya said softly. "Not just the potential for new technology or weapons, but a way to bridge the gaps between all living things. The crystals aren't tools. They're teachers, showing us how everything is connected." The nebula continued to shift and change, revealing patterns that reminded Kethril of the drawings he had first seen Maya create in his courtyard. But now he understood. They weren't just mathematical equations or star charts. They were sheet music for reality itself. "Look," Maya pointed to a particularly intricate formation. "The fragment we're seeking. It's not just another piece of the network. It's a nexus point where multiple quantum harmonies converge. If we can understand it, we can help others understand too," Kethril finished. "Show them what you showed me that day in the sanctuary." Maya nodded, her expression both serious and hopeful. "The symphony is growing stronger. More species are learning to hear it every day. Even those who once sought to weaponize the crystals are beginning to understand their true purpose." A new alert sounded. They were receiving transmissions from across known space. Species that had once been enemies were reaching out, sharing their own experiences with the quantum harmonies. The universal language of mathematics and music was breaking down barriers that diplomacy and force had never been able to penetrate. "Your parents would be proud," Kethril said, watching Maya coordinate the complex dance of ships and energy around them. "Not just of what you've accomplished, but of how you've done it. You've shown us all a better way." "We've done it together," Maya corrected him. "That's what the crystals have been trying to teach us all along. No one species can hear the full symphony alone. We need each other, all of us, to understand the music of the universe." As they prepared to venture deeper into the nebula, Kethril reflected on how far they had come. The tragedy that had connected them, his lost world, her lost parents, had led to something extraordinary. Through Maya's unique gift and humanity's remarkable ability to adapt and understand, they were unlocking mysteries that had waited eons to be discovered. The quantum symphony played on, its harmonies touching lives across the galaxy. And in its music, Kethril heard the promise of a future where understanding transcended fear, where cooperation replaced conflict, and where the boundaries between species faded like stardust in the cosmic wind. Maya stood at the viewport, conducting an invisible orchestra of quantum possibilities, her violet eyes reflecting the dance of creation itself. She was no longer just a child who could hear the crystal songs. She had become a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what was possible when different species learned to listen to each other. Together, they sailed into the heart of the nebula, ready to add another verse to the endless symphony of existence. The legacy of two worlds, human and Zrixian, had become something greater than either could have imagined alone. And somewhere in the quantum fabric of spacetime, the music played on.